Hi, welcome back to Cripple Critter. Today I am going to put inner and outer tie rod ends on this car. And I'm going to try to do a driveway alignment, just temporary until I can get it to somewhere like a computer station where they can do it properly. And the things that I'm going to use today, gotta have jack stands, gotta have a jack, a cheater bar, a couple of good sets of pliers, long needle nose, half-inch ratchet, some extensions. Long screwdriver wouldn't help. Of course, your tie rod ends, inner and outer. A 17 and an 18 millimeter socket, and this is I think this is a 3/4 13/16. Yeah, 3/4 13/16. That's for taking off the lugs on the tires. The only reason I'm telling you that's because someone said that I kind of missed a couple of steps, so I'm going to explain everything. Try to explain everything in clear detail. Rags and paper towels for cleaning up. Of course, you got to clean stuff over there. Welding dogs, maybe some lock and vice grips, and 2 flat bars. A paint stir and stick will work. That is a pulley tensioner bar that you can use on these cars. The reason you're going to use that is that's going to help with the alignment process, and I'll show you that once I get to that. We'll lock those in place. But and I've got a bungee cord and a weight. I don't have a stick like they have at alignment shops to jam underneath the steering wheel. So what I did was I pulled this thing in as straight as possible, and I had the steering wheel as straight as possible. And I'm gonna weave that bungee cord through the forks and hang that 15 weight on there. And you have something that you can hang as a weight. I'll show you how that works. At least it works for me. If you don't have somebody to help you hold the steering wheel as you're doing this, that'll keep the steering wheel from moving while you're working on it. And you're going to need an inner tie rod end removal tool. And you can rent these from your auto parts store, Vance, AutoZone, O'Reilly's, wherever you go. But I opted for buying a new tool. I bought this off eBay, so this is, something from somewhere that people, it's Chinese and it's not going to work. It doesn't make a difference. It's exactly what I need, and I've looked it over, and I'll tell you how it works today as I use it. It takes a 1/2-inch ratchet, and I've already checked on the tie rods that I have in the box, and it's going to be 1 5/16 for that installation. I don't know what the original OEM tie rod end is going to be. I'll let you know when I get to that. Get your book, something to sit on, and of course the cursing chair. And I have extra tools sitting around. Now, when you take the boot off on the rack and pinion, I don't have the tool or the metal clips that actually clip the back of the boot to the rack. So what I always use is just a hose clamp, and I've got a sack full of hose clamps because, like I said, I've worked in salvage my whole life. So whenever I get a hose clamp, I just throw it in a box, throw it in a bag, and I take it with me. And I've got this sack, and I've got a tub back there that's full. So I think they're about 1.5 inch to a 2-inch clamp is what you're going to use on that, but I'll let you know for sure. And you're going to need some crescent wrenches. And one more thing I'm going to plug in here, and I'm not getting paid for this, but I'm going to do it anyway, is this Amazon Echo. Just got this for the house and the garage, and this thing is awesome. The Amazon Music account, I can play whatever I want all day long, and it's uninterrupted, no commercials. I just tell it what I want to hear, and it plays it until I tell it to stop. And that's great for the garage. So let's go ahead and get started, and we'll start working on some of the other stuff. Alexa, play ZZ Top.
Shuffling songs by ZZ Top on Amazon Music.
Man, that thing's great. It's good to have in the garage. Alright, let's get to it. Now, before I get rolling, I want to explain a little more in a little more detail about the forks and hanging this weight for the alignment. See, the steering wheel is pretty much straight. You get your hooks. The reason I use these dumbbells is because I can put this clipped end under this bungee cord down inside this weight. Get them about even, and then you just hang it. And that will put enough tension on this steering column. I mean, it's going to be tight anyway because you got the steering locked, but it will help to hold that where it's at. And that's just an OCD thing for me. I mean, if you don't have that, you can have somebody hold it in place while you're doing it. But we'll get up and we'll check it each time after we start putting the outer tie rod ends on. And I'll show you that. But I just wanted to explain this and show a little more detail. Like I said, it's probably OCD. Probably don't need to do this because, like I said, it's locked in place. It's not really locked. It's just kind of sitting there pretty sturdy. But it's just what I do. Alright, there's one more thing that I forgot to mention in the introduction. Stuff that you'll need. You'll need a ball joint separator. I call them just a tuna fork, but I've got 3 different ones. I don't know which variation I'll need, but I'll figure it out. And you really need one of these to separate the outer tie rod in when you go to pull that out. It'd be a lot easier than just kind of banging on it with a hammer from underneath. Even though you're not going to use it again, you don't want to damage it too bad. You may have to put it back on. Alright, once you've gotten the wheels off and you got it jacked up, you have to get this pin out of this castle nut so that you can take that off to get this tie rod end off. And there's a locking clamp there on that part of the boot that you have to take out. And there is a clip back there. You can see that. It's kind of a little mushroom head. You've got to get your pliers in there and you've got to pop that clip off as well. And that's where we'll put back the hose clamp, because we don't have those clips and I don't have the tool to do that. So hose clamp will work just fine, and I'll show you that. You can use the long needle nose pliers to get in here to pull this clip off. Just kind of squeeze it here, take that off, and you'll use these to jam into the back of that clip on the back and twist it around and break that off. Now I took these needle nose pliers and I put it right there in that groove of that mushroom looking piece, and I just kind of pushed in on it and it broke it loose. And if you don't want to do that because you're afraid of damaging your hand, because it is kind of close quarters in there with that metal, you can use a long screwdriver and put the head of a long screwdriver right there against that piece and push with that, or just tap it with a small rubber mallet, whatever you've got, and it'll pop that clip loose, and you just pull this clip out and the boot is loose. Okay, I have the, I think it's the 18 millimeter, and that fits really good on that castle nut. And just take that off. I've already loosened it a little bit, but I got the short extension. And take that off, and then we'll separate this. Before I use the separator to pull this out, take a big crescent wrench and put it on this back nut that locks this into the shaft on the inner tie rod end. Kind of get some tension on it and just hit it. You can hit it with a hammer down here at the base. Press as hard as you can to get it out of there. You can even kind of lay to the side and kick it if you want, just enough to break this loose. And I've already broken this one loose. And do that before you separate this from this outer housing. Alright, I've chosen the smaller fork on the separators. It fits in there perfect. You just kind of get it in there and then just hit it. And it'll pop it loose just like that. And that's all you need to do with that. And then that's ready to come off. Now, the next thing I'm going to stress is before you turn this, every turn, that's 1, 2, count every turn as you take them off, because as you put the new ones back in, you want to put these back on the same amount of turns as you took them off. That'll get you in a good starting position to get this thing lined up. I always do that, and that's kind of good advice, you know, put it back like you took it off. But make sure you count each turn exactly, so that way you know how many it took to take it off, and then you put them back on the same. Alright, now that we've slid the boot off, got everything out of the way, the ring that's going to fit the stock one, at least the OEM on mine, is the 33.6 millimeter, and I've already smashed that clip down over the back of that. Hopefully you can see that. That's where the configuration is to pull it from. It's on the back. And that's a really tight fit, so I crammed it down on there. When you go to use this tool, you'll slide this over this all the way up to that ring, and that ring is going to sit like this. Since it's already on there, it'll sit down in these grooves like this. So you'll slide it up over that ring once it's already on that nut, and it locks into place here. And you can slide this over it to lock it in place. Probably won't do that. Probably just ram this thing up on there and then take it off. And like I said, the 1/2-inch ratchet fits it down here. So let's go ahead and get this set up and we'll pop that off. Okay, the new tool, I mean, it's kind of thick. All these tools are really thick, and I noticed in putting it on that it's hitting right here on this piece of metal. And it's probably about, I don't know, I'd say a 1/16 or an 1/8 out too far to give me easy access to it. And I'm not trying to damage the tool or anything else on the car. So I'm going to take a grinder and I'm going to grind a little bit of this metal right here where this place is, where you can see where it's bare. We'll grind that out of there. And you can probably take a hammer and just kind of beat that in as well. But I'm just going to do the grinder thing. That's be a little easier. Alright, as you can see, I cut a V-notch out, just enough to fit in. You probably don't have to cut that much out, but OCD, you know, just get it out of the way. Use the grinder. Probably have to put a new wheel on that, but as you can see, it's in there. And I put a little extension on it, so now we just put the breaker bar to a cheetah bar on it, and we'll break it loose. Alright, this is the configuration, the way it's set up. That was a cheetah bar that I put on the end of the ratchet. That's the way it looked. And that slid inside that housing, and it popped it loose really nicely. Didn't have to put a lot of pressure on it at all. One pop and she came out. And real quick, the boot that goes back on there, like I said, I don't have the tool for that ring, so hose clamp will work. I think this is a 2.5. You can use a 2.5 to a 3-inch hose clamp, and that'll fit right up over the back of that, and you can just tighten that down and that'll be just as well. And you have the snapping ring, you know, kind of hold on to that, and then you put that back on the front one. And when we put this new inner tie rod in on there, after we tighten it, we'll slide the boot back on there, and I'll put those back on there. I'll show you that. Alright, now that we're going to install this inner tie rod end in there, I've got some thread lock. I wanted to get the blue, which is a medium strength. I ended up getting the red because the shop here is out, and I went to get some, and they don't have any at the auto parts stores that I checked. So I'm just going to put one tiny drop on the inside of these threads. Just one tiny drop will do it, just in case I need to take this thing back off someday, because this thing will really lock it in there. You put some of this stuff on there and it locks it in place. But I suggest you use the blue. It's a medium strength. That way if you ever have to take it off, you can pop it loose. Like I said, the one tiny drop probably is not going to hurt anything, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. And this is good to use when you're working with steering components like this. I mean, especially on the threads, it's good to have this. That way you don't have to worry about something breaking loose and running out of the road. Alright, now we're going to put one little drop in here. That's way too much. Let me get some of that out of there. I don't need that much in there. And that's about all you need in there. Just enough to get the threads wet. Just like that. And then put this in here. Do we turn it? Thread should catch. Work your angle. Alright, threads are caught. Alright, and that's hand tight. And then we take our tool, slide it back in here. Let's see. Find it. There it is. Now it's up over the piece. Now all we need to do is put our extension on and use our breaker bar, and then we tighten it up. Alright, this is the extension. This is the cheater bar. Put my leg against it to kind of hold it in place. Hold on to it there. Crank it down. And I don't know how much torque it takes. I haven't looked it up in the book. I just move it until I feel like it's completely tight, and with that thread lock it'll hold it. And now that's in. Now, before I put the boot on here, the packet with the inner tie rod in comes with the grease, and I'll take that grease and I'll put it around right there where the shaft actually fits into that nut that's on there. And I'll do that before I put the boot on, and that'll make sure that that's good and lubed up. Alright, now that I've greased that up, I'll go ahead and slide the clamp on the back of this boot. Now you notice there's a little air vent right there, and that's going to connect to a tube that sits there. You can see that just to the left of the housing. You want to make sure that that goes back in there for vacuum purposes. I guess it's got to be on there. I mean, I guess it's important. That's why they put it on there. But I go ahead and slide the clamp on there first, and then I just slide it in there. And I'll put it up on there, and then I'll tighten that clamp up, and then I'll put the one on the front, and then we'll put the outer tie rod in. Alright, after you've worked that boot onto the end of the rack and gotten that air tube in place, which is not that hard if you line it up properly, you can push it right up on there, back on there, and it's best to tighten the clamp up from underneath. I'm up under the car. You can lay down on your back, get a creeper, doesn't matter. But tighten it up from here, and as you can see, it sits over the boot, and it'll hold it on there. Just tighten it up pretty good, and then you're done with that. Alright, clamping the back is tight, tube's in place, and we put the snapping clip back on the front. Alright, the new outer tie rod end comes with the Newcastle nut, and there's the locking nut that you're going to put on the shaft all the way up. That'll lock against the back of that once we put that in place, and there's a new pin that you can run through to lock the castle nut in. So the first thing you want to do is you want to put this nut on the shaft and then put your tie rod in on, and it was 21 turns on this one, so I'm going to go back 21 turns, and that's where we'll start, is from there. Alright, as you can see, I've put this on, and I went ahead and slid that locking pin through the castle nut so that we won't lose it, and it's just sitting there. And what we'll do is we're going to go to the other side, and we're going to repeat this whole process on the other side and put the new inner and outer on that side, and then once that's done, we're going to start the alignment process, and we'll be back and I will show you the alignment once I get all that side done and everything's even. Now, after setting up the passenger side, getting ready to pull this inner tie rod here, if I'd have worked my angles a little better, I probably could have not had to grind that piece. I mean, this is tight, but I got it on the passenger side pretty good, so I could probably have done it on the other side. I mean, I'm kind of glad I grinded it. Made it a little easier, but probably won't have to grind it. Just work your angles a little better on that side, on the driver's side, and may not have to grind. Maybe I shouldn't have, but oh well. It's overkill. I did it anyway. Alright, the passenger side off, and as you can see, that's junk. That's definitely not what you want. Surprised that stayed in there. Okay. On this side, you see we have the welding dogs. We've clamped the... This is just a 12-inch rule, and you can see I got a tape line on that end right there. You want to go just to the outer edge of the rotor right there at the bottom. And then on the other side, do the same thing. I put that steel bar over here, and what you're going to do is you're going to measure across and get your exact measurement from the front, and then measure across and get your exact measurement from the back. And this is going to give you a really close alignment. I mean, it's not going to be dead on exact like they would with the like you would with the alignment station, but this is going to save you from tearing up the tires. And you can see it just stretches all the way across there. It's not touching anything. It's hanging down far enough. And whatever you can use to clamp those, I use welding dogs, but whatever you can use to clamp a flat bar, like I said, to the outside, and just measure across in the front and then measure across in the back. And it's good to have somebody to help you. They can get on the other side and just kind of set the rule for you. Then you can get your position, and then just set your tie rod ends according to that and lock it in place. And that's all you need to do. Alright, I've checked the steering wheel, and as you can see, that's the way I've got it hanging, like I showed you before. Just something to keep it in place, but it's completely straight. And I've measured across enough times, and I've snugged the tie rod ends down on both sides. All I need to do is do a real tightening on it, and it's within a 1/10. I've got this thing, it's less than a 1/16. It's within a 1/10, so I think it's pretty good and close. So we're going to leave it at that until I can get it to a station. I think I got a little while to get it to a station, and that's that. Okay, the last thing I'll add before I go is that the inner tie rod end and the outer tie rod end both come with locking nuts for the shaft. So I doubled it up. I put them both on there. You don't have to. You can just use one, but like I said, my OCD, I like to do the overkill, so I'll tighten one against the other after I get those tightened in there. And put the clip in, castle nuts on, and they're locked in place. The only thing I got to do is tighten those up, throw the tires on, and I'm done. This is not a speedy process. I mean, it's going to take you a little time to get it done. I'm estimating maybe an hour to an hour and a half to do the whole job. if you watch this video before you do everything, get everything laid out, and you kind of get an idea of what you need to do, then it may be a little faster for you. But like I said, it's not a speedy job, but it does get the job done, and it saves you a lot of money in taking this to a dealership or a garage, because they will charge you at the wazoo for all this stuff, especially on this alignment stuff. But hope you found this informative. Like, as always, if you have any questions or comments, just throw them in the piece below. Good luck. Okay, I'm adding this to the tail end of the video because it's been a little over a week since I did this job with the tie rod ends. And 2 days after I did this job, I went to the shop and had it aligned on a professional machine. And as you can see, it was a .30 and a .25 in the front, which means it wasn't really bad out, not enough to tear up the tires. After I did the yard alignment, which would have saved me for about a week or so, they set it at a -0.1, and you can see that there's a lot of camber issues, but there's really nothing you can do for camber, as I've been told. But I'm going to work that out, and I'll show you how to do that as I make that video. But this is basically the sheet that I got the 2 days after what I did in the yard that's in this video. And I, after having it aligned, made a 6-hour trip down to Virginia and spent some time down there and made a 6-hour trip back, and the car is smooth as glass. So it's working very well now. And like I said, I mean, you can do this yard alignment and a couple of days, maybe a week, get your real alignment. I wouldn't suggest putting it off too far. I mean, even though I did it in the yard and it looked like it was done pretty well close, like I said, within a 7th, I'd say within an 8th, maybe a 16th or a 10th, if you're measuring in 10 scale. .30 and .25 is not bad when you're going for a -0.1. That's not that far off. So just get it to the alignment shop and get it done. And basically this concludes it all. So there you go. Hope it worked out for you.